That's it, we're good to go. So we are now on live stream. So welcome everybody to this meeting of the Integration Joint Board. And we've got quite a busy agenda, which seems to be the norm really. Obviously this is also Patricia's last meeting, but I'm not going to say anything just now. I'm going to let her get through the meeting before I say anything. But for those who are online, if you can use the electronic hand if you wish to speak, I've often Jan will be able to see if anybody's got any questions. And obviously in the room, it's just working on. So can I check? And are there any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Gordon Johnson, Amanda Croft, Sarah Lacey, Kenneth Loring, Andrew Murray, Francis Law.
Thank you very much. And as usual, do we have any declarations of interest? No? Very much. So we'll turn to agenda item 3, which is the minute of the meeting of Integration Joint Board on the 1st of December. And as usual, I don't intend to go through it page by page, line by line. So I'm going to ask if anybody has any corrections to the minute. Corrections to the minute. Are we happy to approve the minute? Do that. Right, thank you. Moving swiftly, I managed to take so many papers for moving swiftly on to the action log, which I still have here. And I will pass to Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The action log, as you will see, most of the actions are dealt with items that are on the agenda, with the exception of the third one on the first page, which is about the dedicated deep dive on pressures related to prescribing. We did touch on this in the primary care joint session with Clerks and Ceremony and Integration Joint Board, but recognise that we would like to do a further session with our board members. There's quite a considerable amount of work going on across NHS Forth Valley with the head of pharmacy and other colleagues, and we would like to bring them back to present that.
Are there any questions or comments on the action log? And we'll move on to the agenda board. You'll see the Chief Officer board. You'll see the Chief Officer report in front of you. Quality and the depth of work that is ongoing across the partnership. In section 4, there's an update on our recruitment. The recruitment for the new Chief Officer is well underway and expected to be concluded next week. So we would hope to be able to circulate that information as soon as we can. The Chief Finance Officer recruitment has been successfully completed, and Marie Kears, who's joining us from Inverclyde, is here observing the IGB today. And we continue to benefit from the support from Mark Fairley as Interim Chief Officer until Marie comes into post late May. We'd also like to welcome our Chief Nurse, Nicola Wood, who's with us today, and Nicola was recently just appointed to the Chief Nurse post as of the beginning of January. So you'll see there's updates on a range of issues in relation to primary care. I draw your attention to section 4.14 with the care and support at home updates, and that is the progress with the contracting and the tendering of that contract, which is a key element of our business. And you can see we've received an unusual quality of providers who are bidding to be part of that. So that process will be concluded and will come into effect from the 1st of April. You'll also see a summary from section 4.26 on the inspection reports, and you'll note the improvement of the inspection results in Greenstone House and the work that the leadership team and the staff have done to improve the rating up to 4, so in good detailed at 431. I'd like to also attract your attention to section 5, which details programme board, which has been set up following a decision by Falkirk Council to explore the potential transfer of children's social work services and community justice services into the Health and Social Care Partnership. So as Chief Officer, I've
Head of Integration, Chief Social Work Officer and others. But also critically, we have got the Deputy Chief Finance Officer from the NHS and the Head of Children's Services in the NHS. So there's very much a Canforth Valley multi-agency discussion, and there'll be a further paper coming back to the June IGB on progress and any proposals in that regard. So there's also an update on NHS Forth Valley, and at the time of writing, we can confirm that Nina Mahal has been appointed as the interim chair of NHS, and that is with effect from the 1st of April. There's an update on the escalation process at section 6 as well, and then throughout the rest of the report, various pieces of information, including an update in section 8 on the National Care Service. So I hope you find that report interesting. I think it really is indicative of the volume of work that is ongoing, but also that is coming at us in an environment that is ever changing, but with lots of opportunities and challenges for the IGB. So I hope you are able to consider and comment on the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Can I open up for questions? So your report's been so comprehensive. As usual, I have a couple of questions, but I did want to say around the care and support at home contract, and I know that has been a huge piece of work, and it's brilliant to hear that the volume and quality of those coming in has been really good, and I think that's an excellent bit of work and really help the quality and delivery of care and support at home in the future. So well done to everybody involved in that. I have one quick question around which is 4.41. Yeah, the short-term housing lets, and I wondered if you might be able to. I thought this was a really interesting development. I wondered if you might be able to say a little bit more about it.
This is a really really good example of how working together across the public sector organisations we can really achieve greater impact. So this is a negotiation for a couple of council flats, and this is about us filling a gap that we have for people who are in hospital and are waiting for adjustments or amendments to their house, and they can't get home until those are completed. So these 2 flats will enable us to help people to take that interim step out of hospital, continue the rehab until they're able to go home or to secure maybe alternative housing. And in order to do that, we've got into partnership with the NHS board we can, as a partnership, directly rent the houses from the council. However, the NHS board can on our behalf. So this is progressing well. It has to go to the NHS P&R committee at the end of this month, and then we should be able to implement that immediately. That is signed off.
Very much. And I did want to make a comment on the NHS Forth Valley Long COVID service. For those who don't listen, it has been said that I have before, so I do tend to tell people about the fact that I have been affected by COVID. I think it's a really positive development that the NHS Forth Valley has developed it, because it's not available in every area to have this long COVID service. And I was up at the Parliament just by happen chance, and there was people from across Scotland who were affected by long COVID, and they had a drop in, and there was a debate at the Parliament. So I think it's definitely increased in attention, but I think this kind of holistic type service is an excellent development, and I think actually probably something that's an excellent development in terms of a number of long-term conditions, not just on the COVID, but really how to be across not just healthcare, but across social and community services, be able to support people in long-term conditions easily, so that they don't have to do all the running around. So I think it's an excellent development. So I just wanted to make that point on there. So I will move us on. Thank you very much. And I'll move us on to our 2023-24 finance report. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. You have the report in front of you, and so what you everyone will have read it. Find it interesting reading. So I'll pick out some of the which I think are the key points just to summarise. The report is for the 9 months to 31st of December 2023. Note that the year-to-date position as at that point was 5.168 million overspend, with the principal pressures being within set aside predominantly the large hospital, the primary care prescribing, and pressures within adult social care, particularly care home residential care. There is a favourable position, i.e. an underspend within the community healthcare, so that's the case of the health facilities included in the budget. Turning to the forecast outturn, the acute hospital set aside is projected at an overspend of 6.248 million. Actually, that has probably moved adversely in the period since the 31st of December. However, it's kind of not relevant for this particular report because the financial management of that or any overspend is managed by NHS Forth Valley, although I would re-emphasise it is all of our responsibilities. And the other integration services are overspent by 1 million. As I said, principally primary care prescribing, social care. Nevertheless, I anticipate a balance year and outturn. Having said that, that will be achieved by the provision of reserves, the integration joint board reserves. At that point, it's identified something, 1.9 million. And now it's in the region of 2.2 to 2.3 million. It's worth pointing out that there's been an increased budget for the year 23-24, i.e. the current year. And the main change is that the budget was increased by 1.2 million in respect of the received the uplift. And as I said, there have been a number of transfers from reserves up until now. One anticipated that the return to section 4. It's got the detail that I was just referring to there. You can see that the large hospital, the first one is 5.168 million. Specialist mental health services. Describing, which is 2.4 million, adverse social care 1.3 million. So care and residential community health care is actually underspent by just over 3 million. And that is predominantly a combination of community hospital and vacancy services. For your information, there has been a challenge year with regards to prescribing information. The information from this, we process all of the primary care prescribing. They changed their system, really aware of this. Anyway, we changed the system last year, started last calendar year, and there was a significant delay. Availability of information. It used to be a 2-month lead time, and that's based on the given amount of data refining was required. But at one point it was 5 months. I'm pleased to say we're now up to December, and for this month, the March reporting cycle, it will be back to the 2-month lead time. So the advantage of that is that it gives you there's good quality information. That's what I'm able to do. the information is now catching up. I'll also comment on there is a plan to reduce and in fact remove the interim care beds. That is ongoing. It's an ongoing challenge, and at this point, I would like to bring to the board's attention that the ward, Stirling Ward 5, Stirling Community Hospital Ward 5, was reopened for a period of approximately 6 to 7 weeks, and that was in February, couple of weeks of March. It was reopened to provide additional bed flexibility that was deemed required at that moment in time. It has now closed, and I think that's important. But it's also important that we bring to the attention of the board the fact that that's an additional £51,000 to a facility. That's our share of the facility, share between ourselves, the Blacks and Stirling, JB and NHS. I would feel emphasise that we object to this to reduce the interim periods to ideal consideration. If we can turn to section 4.13, the savings target for 23-24, i.e. the current year we're in, was 13.5 million, of which 3.8 was set aside, 3.7 in integration, and 7.8 is what is expected to achieve, and it's expected to be the balance that would be provided from the centres of slightly more than that. The transfers come from general reserves, from general reserves. Forecast outturn, I said earlier, acute is assumed at 6.3 million, primary care 3.5 million, all affairs, social care 2.7 million. The community health care forecast outturn would be for just over 4.2 million. So overall, looking at £2 million adverse position. It does include a number of brought forward service pressures, approximately 5.5 million. The economic reviewing workforce, state agency costs, etc. But I think it's important to highlight projecting balanced financial outturn, but it's also fundamentally important to realise that so, in conclusion, just say that I think it's a useful report, and that's something to consider. On page 1 of this report, page 51, as to the recommendations. Let's come to a conclusion, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'll open up to questions.
As a point of information, it's just it's unusual for us to bring something in furtherly, as Mark has done, around the £51,000, and that just needs to be included in the recommendations and the decision if the board are happy to approve that additional 51,000, and it needs to be reflected in the directions as well. Apologies, we wouldn't normally do that, but it's a situation that's arisen in the course of the preparation of the paper.
So can I just check then, just so that we get the recommendations correct? So we have an additional recommendation to approve our part of the expenditure of the closure of Stirling Ward 5.
Of the opening of Stirling.
Sorry, yeah. Opening
and closure.
and opening and closing.
It is important to
Yeah.
recognise this was a fixed term.
That's
Fixed term.
Yeah.
Would be required in the future.
so. Is everyone okay with that recommendation? Happy with that? And we've got the approval of the breakdown of payments to the council and NHS for valid with directions, and approve the recovery actions outlined in section 5.4. Are we all content with that? And obviously the directions will be like the 51,000 for opening and closing. All at one time. Thank you very much. I'm coming back to you, Mark, for the next report, which is agenda item 7, which is the business case. Right, over to you.
Thank you again. Again, you have which I believe is a comprehensive report in front of you, which hopefully will have been of interest to you. Again, I'll come around here. The initial gap was 17 million, and it's what I highlight. The initial gap was 19 million. It's important to identify that was actually despite some increases in projections. The living wage uplift from Scottish Government 6.7 million, and HJC the uplift from council 1.2 million. Primary care prescribing, well, I've just spoken about it in the previous report. It is ongoing cost pressure, so there's an uplift assumed in that 5.5 million, which is also £6 million. There are a number of other areas. The issues, the cost of transition from children's services to adult services. So transition of children's services from council is actually just as the children become adults. It's a very complex adaptation. There's a number of bespoke packages required for it, and I understand this was raised previously. So we have looked at what the issues are, and the disability team are working closely to understand the individual needs that is subject to law. We also have the advantage of Falkirk Council's pension fund was in a very strong position, and the result was something of a pension holiday. Sounds like big, but it just means that the contribution of the students and pension fund has been reduced over better for a period of 3 years. So this year, the benefit is 300,000 to the lower in terms of the expenditure of the staff. Medium-term financial plan is a separate paper which we want to. If you look at Appendix 1, you'll see the savings plan for the year. I think it's important to highlight that the savings plans comprise red, amber and green categorisation. Red ones are 7 million, amber are 5 million, and green 6 million, getting a total of now was an 18 million thing gap. But I think it's important to hold on in fact to highlight that the green 6 million includes 3.9 million of assumed transfer from reserves, so that is really nature guaranteed. There is another factor which has arisen in the last few months, which is the aim to change the working week from 37.5 hours for NHS staff and 37.5 hours to 37 hours. That's in the first instance, and then thereafter transition to 36 hours. That change. We're still identifying what financial implications of that will be, whether or not it will be funded. Change in either a reduction in capacity by half an hour per person, or alternatively costs associated with that. People continue to work in additional treatment. They are waiting clarifications to how that will be funded. It's unquantified at this particular time. I think I drilled down a little bit longer than the last one. So maybe again, happy to 3 point go to page 66. The nations and without any question.
Very much, Mark. Can I open up to questions? I've got Trish first.
Yeah, just to build on what Mark has said, this additional pressure has not been taken into account because we don't know the scale of the additional pressure from the non-pay element. So it was part of the NHS pay deal that was agreed in the autumn. There's a pay element that is funded and budgeted centrally, and there's a non-pay element which is about this reduction in the working week, and that takes effect from the 1st of April. And we're expecting national guidance. This is something that's just very live at the moment, and staff will be entitled from the 1st of April, if the working week hasn't been reduced by the half an hour, that they automatically are entitled to half an hour's overtime. So it's a really substantial issue financially, given we don't know if it's going to be centrally funded. There are no indications that it is, but also in terms of rescheduling rotas and working patterns, it's quite a significant challenge in a very short period of time. So just to alert members of the board that is a very real pressure, not simply a budgetary one, but one that is a challenge across the whole of the health services.
So I follow-up to that, having been an organisation going through this as well. I know it's early days. Are we taking a weekly cut-off point, or are we averaging out? You know, so and I've been in a space where we actually average out over. It actually became very difficult to reach the regs because obviously they can have off annually times of average, you know what I mean? Actually, it's quite difficult to reach it. But actually, we have almost reached it weekly on a number of occasions. So I have got concerns over the sheer magnitude across health and social care across Scotland, and not even people factor in how much that's really costs if you're doing that on a weekly basis. So I don't know if there's been any discussion with the Staff Association about how you actually look at that in the round, as opposed to having that like off the top. That's going to be really challenging.
I think I can only reflect that it's subject to intense discussions and negotiations nationally and locally. My understanding is that there should be guidance out this week to assist with that, but it is a very developing situation.
Can I bring Robert in back?
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be quite a financial burden on health boards, etc., and partnerships. What we have to remember as well, it's not just full-time staff that has the reduction, there's a pro rata reduction for part-time staff as well. There's also the protected learning of 2 hours for each person, which we'll have to factor in. And of course, this is just the first phase of reduction of the hours of work. The aim is to get down to 36 hours. There's some issues with the systems, SSTS, which is the payroll system, and also EESS, which is the employment engagement staff service, but they're being done. We have not got guidance yet. However, as we speak, there is a meeting of senior trade union officials and the health board as to how it's going to be adopted. I think Stephen was alluding that maybe we could save up the half hour and get a day off or something like that. It's clearly not to happen. It's also clearly not to, it's a well-being factor. So it has to be a full half hour. So we've had various areas saying, oh, you can leave 6 minutes early, etc. That cannot happen. It's to be a full half hour. So I thought I'd just make that clear. Thanks.
Robert, I don't know if that kind of that kind of covers the discussion around the half hour change, which obviously we'll need to a kind of waiting brief, I think, watching brief. And did you
Let's clarify. How long has this been known about? We're in this difficult situation now in terms of trying to implement it by the 1st of April. It does seem to be coming on rather quickly.
My awareness of it's less than a month.
Robert, would you want to say?
Yeah, just to say it was part of last year's pay award. So that it's been known about since last year. We had been told that there was discussions happening nationally around how it was going to be implemented, but that's never came to fruition. So as usual, we get told 4 weeks in advance, please implement this. And we'll probably get the guidance this afternoon about 4 o'clock.
So maybe we should look forward to that guidance or not. I'm not sure.
I'm just being cynical because that's what we did during COVID. So,
is there any other questions or comments? Or can we go through the recommendations? The ones that we need to approve is 2.2 to approve the updated business case. Are we happy to do that? And approve the use of brought forward reserves for Strathcarron Hospice. And approve the 2024-25 savings plan. I'm doing shorthand here, so I'll be lost in the numbers. But thanks very much for that, report, Mark, and obviously I'm coming back to you for the medium-term financial plan.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll get Gap after this actually. Really the benefit of those that are listening to. So again, we have the medium-term financial plan 2024 to 2028. So for a 4-year period. It's important to highlight the medium-term financial plan is a key part of the overall strategy, planning the use of resources going forward. Have limited resources, and obviously there's the impact of inflation to achieve value for money. So this is a key document. I've included the UK government update, which highlights the challenging economic environment. Also changes to national insurance. Wage, which will improve the individual's financial position by an income increase to self-employed. Scottish Government have their own medium-term financial plan that focuses on use of public funds on achieving government objectives. Policies of the Scottish Government. Highlight point about Audit Scotland, who have prepared a series of reports. Some of the key ones highlighted the considerable financial challenge in the public sector in particular, and therefore the need for very different decisions to be made. In terms of the local context, Falkirk Council have a 5-year deficit totaling 65 million, 54 million in the dental tax. So, important council meetings are in discussion regarding council tax planning, service service pressures, service savings, fees, and charges, and use of service stations. I say, recently, council recently to the Scottish Government Pension Council. NHS Forth Valley, again, significant financial challenge over the next 5 years. 24-25 concerning a financial challenge of 58 million, rising to in 28-29, 60 million. So it's not going away. There are a series of savings plans, but as I'm sure you all realise, there has been and continues to be a significant reliance on having non-recurring savings. You'll see in the pack that the net deficit for 24-25 next year, 4 million, but rising to a net deficit in 28-29, 25 million. And again, it's especially within the acute setting, the NP volume increases and have a significant contract exposure. The Integration Joint Board strategic plan. It was a 2-year plan. It's now increased that to 4 years. We need to recognise an ageing population with housing, cost of living challenges, etc. And have a plan regarding workforce plan. But it's important to recognise that we have to have we have a caring requirement and ensure that we have a approach that ensures that some financial workforce. Robert was sense about that. Financial challenges are consistent with my previous 2 reports, actually set aside. Again, I noted that we have a part of the integration scheme that is the responsibility of NHS Forth Valley from a financial point of view, but it is for all of our financial challenge. Social care, again, continued pressure on residential care and care at home. Something needed to change with the demographic population and culture and more. Primary care, again, the pressure is primary care prescribing and how we manage that. And we've had ongoing discussions with GP colleagues regarding how that would be best managed. There is pressure on the primary care improvement plan, manageable in year 1, again, by non-recurring means, but there is an underlying potential pressure going forward. And complex care, district nursing, there is that. Again, it's an ongoing pressure that those areas, but as I said earlier in previous reports, it is offset by the favourable gains in community hospitals. Falkirk to have big vacancies within the service. And in fact, we have assumed a certain level of vacancy as a result of the difficulties that we have in terms of there's a list of assumptions included in the pack. There's a section on the planning assumptions and context. In table 4, the projected government expenditure and savings environment. As a combination of current savings should be seen section 5. And we are planning on the use of reserves. The reserves strategy should be put in use to make them to give flexibility to make improvements and smooth out the issues of financial projections. But by their very nature, those are multi-term solutions. In section 5, we've got the management of the financial challenge, and again that identified the savings assumptions for 24-25, red, amber, and green, and emphasise that without recurrent is a surprise to anyone who needs recurrent financial solutions. And there's sections on Scottish Government emphasise the need for major reform to the health and social care sector, to National Care Service. Legislation for this, the Scottish Parliament recently. Section on capital, although capital is managed by the individual partners, open again, so shares both value, although there is no sanction. Funding this insurance to well, I think we have a risk section supporting to identify and manage risk. It's a separate legal and strategic risk register. Like Falkirk Council and main chief both value to have risk registers. We have a education job for generally, additional points, we have pressure on our beds, we have the demands for healthcare, and residential demands for residential care, pressure on prescribing budgets. There's also two other things. One, we will have the transfer of business and social services from expenditure changes for next funds. So, for the moment, there's one recommendation to duty as to food for which we attempt to measure ban and having economic questions. That's me.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'll open up for questions. Stephen.
Thanks. Do we know what sea transfer of prison services and we got to this debate health is that you're never directly funded by Scottish Government for prison population. Do we know where that is going? Are we getting any additional funding bearing in mind with a prison population and all that comes to with the area?
Yeah.
So currently, the IGB doesn't, it's not a function that's within the IGB's delegation currently. It remains within NHS Good Valley, and we're overseeing the management of it. And of my role as a director of NHS Good Valley, and Judith is directly managing it as head of primary care. And so we knocked up as part of the review of the integration scheme. So there's still decisions to be taken by the Health Board and the Council about the delegated functions as part of that, but it may well come in as a delegated function. In relation to the funding, I think Mark is going to come in and Judith may have some update at a national level, but ongoing discussions coming into Mark.
Yeah, it's included because I think it's important to highlight that there is a potential implication, but it's not quantified. There have been, as you probably know, over the last few years, we have 3 prisons in the Health Board area. There have been extensive discussions with Scottish Government regarding what our exposure is there. There's a change to what was Thornton Vale, now reaching Stirling. We received additional funding for that, which has not yet been fully consumed as a result of the fact that the prison's not fully occupied. Like to and discussions regarding how that would be, that exit, that temporary exit would be managed through the entirety of the module, which time would include the prisons. As the Chief Officer has said, it's being managed within the partnership, but it's not actually delegated to, and that process to move to actually being financial responsibility for some significant financial analysis is still the position now and the position in the future. But that will be relevant due diligence around that. The same point I just made about the inclusion of prisons in the report and constituent services is exactly the same. It's a different a different heading, which is subtracting signals.
Gender distribution, why is that?
It's just to add that there are a number of national conversations happening in relation to the significant pressures in the prison population. And you might be aware that the Minister Angela Constance made a statement in Parliament a couple of weeks ago just in relation to reviewing that because of the increase in the population challenges in relation to the estate and its ability to absorb that. Through Patricia's role as Chief Officer with Prisons Within her remit, we're part of the national discussions in relation to that. I think there's a growing acceptance that we need to be planning more of these services on a national basis because of the pressures on individual boards and our duties. So we're well connected into those discussions, which I think is very useful.
So that's really.
No, that's very close.
Any other questions?
Just thank you for your report. Extremely difficult report to put together in the situation where we have to make so many assumptions about what the financial situation will be. But it's also very worrying. As you were talking about anticipating now a year-on-year increase in the deficit. Are we confident that we have plans in place dealing with that?
At the moment, we concentrate on, we can forecast what we think the position is going to be, what our income expenditure is for X number of years, in this case, the next 4 years. But our immediate focus has to be on the next 12 months, and that the achievement of that then dictates what the financial challenge is for the successive years, because there will be a combination of recurring and non-recurring, sometimes fortuitous savings that crop up during the course of the year. So it's important to highlight financial pressure, and that I think is what we have done, is to reflect that, but without being unduly pessimistic. Not an expression I normally use, but it is. I think it's important to highlight the magnitude of the challenge, but try and identify what mitigation strategies are in place. Now, some of the ones that will be put in place this year will have a recurring impact, and that's what we need to do. But that's the approach. That's the benefit of having a full year is to identify what the issues with that. Are trying to do a bit more of the strategic planning than just the next 12 months.
Obviously, we have to try and do that, and well done, good in putting it together. But it is, I tend to be known for my optimism. But I look at this and I'm not really hugely optimistic.
Absolutely. Just add, it is a difficult read, but we're really still emerging from COVID and post-COVID, and we're in a much better place as a partnership in the sense of, the doors have opened and for opportunities within NHS funds and those partnerships there. So, the opportunity for transformation is very real. We need to seize that opportunity and look at how we can really work with our communities and our individuals to see actually what is it that they need to be supported in their own homes and to be empowered to have more control over their own health and long-term conditions. So I'm really optimistic that with the development of our locality teams and our locality planning, alongside community planning partners, but particularly really getting the impact from our community learning and development resource that we have and we fund as an IGB, alongside our health improvement colleagues who've transferred over into the partnership and aligned with primary care and our third sector partners. So there is real foundations there for some real transformation and person-centred planning and redesign. And so, you know, I hope my successor can come in and really build on these foundations. And it's very difficult. The financial position is very difficult, but I really believe when it is that difficult, it really forces you to be a lot more creative and to have really strong partnerships to find solutions that deliver the outcomes we're all trying to achieve, and rather than working in silos. So I hope to see that over the next 12 months that those opportunities can be realised.
Thank you for that reassurance. Seems to be back into an optimistic state, and a big challenge for your successor. A big issues of them.
Any further questions? Can I just make a quick comment around the, it's a comment rather than a question, and obviously over the years of the prescribing pressures have been consistent, and the overspends in prescribing and have been consistent. So I think that the point about having that deep dive and wider discussion about what the future might look like, and I know that those are similar discussions at the NHS board about how prescribing is managed and those cost pressures managed. So I think it's great that we're looking at having the deep dive in that, because I think it is such an important issue, and something that we can really have a good discussion. And I know that we did that a number of years ago. It was a number of years ago, and I think it was very interesting, the work that was going on. But I think where are we progressing to, and what are the next steps, I think would be really useful to hear. So as I said, I'm looking forward to that session.
Just on that subject, if I can highlight that level of deep dive and review and finding care is one of the key of the anticipated financial management. Savings areas. So it's a key component, and a lot of work has already gone into that area, which is why we've been able to put some of that financial plan. But as to when that kicks in, that's what my assumptions are. That's managed over the next few months. Of course, it's a very big.
Thanks so much, Mike. Any other questions on this? So are we happy to approve the plan? Our next item is a partnership funding investment fund. And that's Leslie, I believe, is online. I can't actually, as discussed my outside, I can't actually see which is how this good.
Morning, Chair.
That's fine. I can hear you. Thank you very much.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Chair, and also thank you very much to the Chief Officer who, for our previous comments, it's beautifully set the context for this paper, so that was very helpful. I'm really pleased to be able to present to you the Partnership Funding Investment Plan for 2024 to 27 for IJB approval this morning. The paper also provides detail of changes to the use and reserves, which are proposed to help establish the 13 funds within the programme. In December 2023, the IJB approved the development of a 3-year investment plan, noting the benefits including consistency in governance, robust monitoring and evaluation, and the ability to target resources towards emerging local needs and priorities. The investment plan, which is attached as Appendix 1, sets out 13 funds for the use over a 3-year period of the programme. Opening budgets are provided in Table 2 of the paper. It should be noted that the funds are both recurring and non-recurring, and that is specified within Table 2. We're acutely aware of the challenging environment that the HSCPs are operating in across Scotland. The priority of many frontline services remains responding to immediate and priority needs. Through the delivery of the Partnership Funding Programme, Falkirk HSCP have the opportunity to achieve significant impact by effectively targeting a limited amount of resource. The programme allows us to broaden and strengthen the scope of provision through partners across the whole system. In doing so, we can maintain a focus on prevention and early intervention, help tackle health inequalities, and provide people with earlier options to formal health and social care. In developing the investment plan, we've worked closely with leads and commissioning groups aligned to each of the funds. Funding priorities have been identified by considering national and local strategic context and data, engagement findings, and other resources available both internally and externally. We've also used learning points from the previous investment programmes. This includes the introduction of an enhanced assessment process over and above due diligence for proposals where management fees are over 15%. This will be implemented for all new proposals and more widely at fund review points. We're also building on learning about the impact of strong relationships with local providers in enhancing collaborative working where services can be co-designed and delivered. We note the importance of balancing innovation and with enhancing what works well and creating a sustainable local infrastructure and capacity. The importance of monitoring and evaluation using qualitative and quantitative data is also noted. Looking ahead beyond 2027, it's likely the amount of partnership funds will significantly decrease. Whilst this does pose some risk, we have the unique opportunity to affect change now. By incorporating the learning points highlighted, we will be able to plan beyond 2027 with the added benefit of stronger community infrastructure and more partners who are able to demonstrate their contribution to the provision of health and social care in Falkirk. Section 5 of the report sets out proposed changes for the use of reserves. This includes transferring the balance of the Health Inequalities and Wellbeing Fund and also 60,000 Localities Fund to be used with the Health Improvement Fund. The key focus of this programme will be around locality-based prevention and capacity development, supporting the locality planning process. We're also proposing repurposing 1.5 million of carers fund reserves to form an improvement fund targeting carers and self-directed support. This will be informed by a commissioned evaluation to consider the impact of services on social care referrals and demand. As noted, is the 1.5 carers reserve to establish a widening access programme. This will be used to continue to deliver and develop activity around about community link work, distress brief intervention and the Independence and Inclusion Programme. With regard to the EPIA, a positive impact is anticipated on some groups and neutral on others. Positive impact will be derived by a progression of priority areas of work associated with enhancing sustainable community-based services. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Very much, Leslie. Can I open, excuse me, can I open up for questions? Can I open up for questions? Caroline, would you like to come in? Caroline, you're still on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry. I'm also saying I don't think my camera's working, so apologies. I have a number of things that have been raised by carers recently that I'm hoping is appropriate to just factor in right now to this really comprehensive report, if that's okay. It talks in section 5.5 about the self-directed support, and there are a number of carers have raised some concerns about self-directed support and how they struggle to understand what it actually means and how it can be actually used. And I had a couple of examples in particular about option 2 and whether you know, whether what's set out in the options is actually happening in practice, and people being told they can't use it in certain ways, and also just around about respite and not really understanding. So it was just really if that could be taken into consideration when looking at how funds are going to be used and maybe how things are going to be looked at. And the report also focuses quite heavily on prevention and early intervention, and some of the other feedback that we've had from carers is around about two aspects. So CAMS, which I know is not like referred to at all in the papers today, I don't think, just like waiting times and seemingly an increase in referrals not being accepted, being unsuccessful. Specifically around about like doctors referring and then that not being a successful referral. And then the other aspect was around about social work waiting timescales. So after the referral, having to wait quite a while, and then it really becomes quite an escalated situation before any input's received. So I just thought those were maybe quite relevant to raise, and we've had quite a lot all of a sudden feedback from carers, which is really helpful, for my role here. So I think that was the couple of things that I wanted to raise, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I just want to check, Martin, do you want to come in around any stuff around rates and around that more specifically about understand, and then we can go back to Leslie about the plan.
Yeah. I suppose in relation to SDS, I have asked for a review of our current arrangements. So we are looking through some work with SDS Forth Valley and our own team to try and make the process simpler and clearer for carers to understand. But also, I guess, to try and increase the uptake of the various options around SDS. So that work's ongoing, and hopefully we'll see some significant improvements over the coming months. In relation to, I guess, demands and delays, you'll be aware of the workforce challenges that we have across all sectors and within the Health and Social Care Partnership, and that is having an impact on our waiting list, particularly around about the social work teams. At the moment, they are really struggling to recruit occupational therapists, for example. So we've seen significant delays in terms of the OT waiting list. We have recently relaunched the Living Well Falkirk initiative, and we put extra resources into that so that people should be able to get a lower level assessment quite quickly. It's that more intensive assessment process that requires a skilled OT and a face-to-face appointment that we are still really struggling to meet the demand. Yesterday only I authorised one of the managers to go out and to recruit agency OTs to fill the gap. We have significant recruitment issues around the OTs, physios and social workers primarily, and that's having an impact on the waiting list. But we are looking at new ways of recruiting, and this Paul's been helping us with some of that activity and through a revised comms strategy and things. But we are seeing significant waiting times for people in certain areas. We have recently appointed a team manager to pick up our access team. Members may recall that our new structure for the social work service within the partnership, part of that was to develop an access team that could intervene really quickly. It could give people advice and direction at the point of contact rather than them joining a waiting list. And our hope is that actually they'll be able to do some really quick assessment, identify levels of priority and actually deal with those priorities, I guess, at an appropriate time. At present, our model relies on people coming into an area team and sitting on a waiting list until they become a priority before they get that initial advice and guidance. So we're hoping that the creation of the access team will really shift that model. And I believe that the recruited and appointed to that post, and I believe they're due to start early next month. So hopefully from that point, we will begin to give people quicker access to advice, guidance, and to be able to signpost people quickly to the places they need to be. So I guess there is a lot of work ongoing to try and alleviate the waiting list and improve our response to service users. But I do acknowledge that actually there have been real challenges in terms of the pressures facing your teams over recent months. And unfortunately, that has an impact on our service users and their carers. But we are really keen to actually improve that offer over the coming months. And I would hope that the introduction of the access team primarily and the work around SDS, the job working with SDS Forth Valley, actually really improves our offer carers going forward. And I'd be happy to bring an update on progress in relation to all of them for future board.
Sure. Yep, in terms of CAMS, perhaps we could just take that offline, Caroline, and the other two, just so we can specifically answer any other issues. I mean, CAMS is not technically in the IGB. However, if you share the concerns, then I can certainly make sure that the relevant colleague in NHS Forth Valley is able to help you. I know there's been a huge amount of work around the waiting times for CAMS, and that is sitting up at 90% performance in the last month or so, so there's been significant improvement. But there are at times misunderstandings about what's an appropriate referral to CAMS, and there may be some issues around that as well. So if you want to pass on those specific details, then we can deal with those complaints directly. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant, thank you. I don't know, Leslie, if you want to add anything to that in relation to the partnership funding plan, and particularly in relation to carers and self-directed support with it.
Yeah, I think first of all, just to thank Caroline for the feedback from carers. That is really helpful and absolutely at the heart of the, you know, how we would progress the use of the carers fund. We have recently added to or increased SDS Forth Valley's budget to allow them additional capacity, which I think will help significantly. And the other thing just to note is that we've already linked with the access team manager, recognising that we really, you know, that team will work very closely, or we will work very closely with that team in terms of underpinning some of the resource and signposting that will take place, offering alternatives to people.
Very much. Annie, let's connect.
Not so much a question as a comment. Really appreciate this report. But I think we need to say quite loud and clear how very important partnership funding investment is in terms of the preventative nature of the work. And it links into the discussions earlier on about if we can front load more preventative assistance and support for people, then we will have possibly a better chance of reducing later expenditure and later difficulties for individuals. I think that this is really important, and I think it's really important that we try to ensure that we keep up with that kind of approach in terms of preventative work.
Any questions or any further questions or comments? I think just to generally to echo what Sam said, I think this is an excellent report, and I think the plans around supporting carers, around supporting dementia, for example, obviously there's a lot of things in there, absolutely excellent, and very pleased to see ongoing support around community link workers, because I think the evidence is there that they're a really important support for people in the community and a really great connector to the services and other supports in the community as well. So really pleased to see that. So I will, with that, if there's no more questions, are we happy to approve the investment plan and the request of change of use of iDrive reserve set in section 8? Thank you very much, Leslie. What we'll do is we'll take agenda item 10, the strategic risk register, and then we'll have a short 10-minute comfort break, and for everyone to get coffee and specialise a little bit. So I'm going to hand over to Mark for agenda item 10, the strategic risk. Really struggle to say that, strategic risk register.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure everyone will be delighted to know that I'll make this brief, but I'll try to, first of all, there are no new risks. Of the 9 risks identified, all remain extant except for regrettably financial sustainability, which has been adverse. We have had an extensive discussion earlier on regarding the financial challenge. As you know, the initial financial gap was 19 million, down to 18 million, and we have various savings plans to deal with that gap. Councillor Hannah made reference earlier on about the significance of the financial challenge, so I think it's consistent with that comment alone that the risk associated with financial sustainability is going to there. So I wasn't really planning on going into any detail on any of the specific risks. You have a detailed report in front of you, albeit that the main part is a bit shorter than the others. I'll again highlight that there are a couple of additional issues that are not formally included, but worthy of note. Those are, as I've said earlier, implications of prisons, transfer of prisons, and potential children's prisons. In the detailed, the appendix with the detailed analyses on the very first one regarding finance, there is one other risk, one other component which is not included, which is the impact of the Middle East conflict and the potential for supply lines via Suez Canal. It's seen a potential impact on the availability of services, well, not so much services, but products. So that see how that develops. That's something which really needs to be included in addition to the existing ones, which include I wasn't actually planning on saying anything more on the risk register. I'm happy to take questions. Sorry.
Thank you very much. I will open up to questions. What we're confident. I think the key risks are in financial sustainability, and I think we're all very well aware of and not just around the partnership with the NHS and the council as well, and something that we're all grappling with. Obviously something that we need to continue to keep a close eye on and try to adjust as best we can and transform as best we can as well to be able to manage that. But if there's no questions, I will take this opportunity just to thank you, Mark, for your and your role as interim Chief Finance Officer, and really thank you for all the work you've done. It's very much appreciated. And I hope you can get an extra biscuit at the coffee break.
I'm not sure I need one.
So on that, I'm going to let the live stream be paused for a moment, and then we'll take a 10-minute break. So we come back for 11 on the button. I think that's 13 minutes. That's us. Welcome back, everybody, and I hope you all managed to get a coffee and a bit of a stretch to the legs. I'm going to move us straight into our next report, which is the Equality Outcomes and Mainstream report. That's item 11, and that's it.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. So as you'll all be aware, we received the report in December on the first stage of the consultation to develop our new equality outcomes for 2024 and 2028. This report provides an update that we ran a second stage to that consultation, which was opened on the 25th of January and closed on the 7th of March. The purpose of that phase of the consultation was to consult on proposed actions that we can take over the next 4 years to help achieve those outcomes, having already confirmed what the key issues were. There was a marginally higher response rate this time around via Participate Plus, but again, we spoke to a similar number of people, about 100 people, over the course of that consultation. The public largely agreed with the proposed actions that we are going to take over the next 4 years. However, of course, the onus is on us to take all of those actions and achieve those outcomes. There are 3 proposed actions for each of the 2 outcomes, which are set out at pages 199 and 200 of the regretted packs. The report attached at Appendix 1 complies with the IGIB's duty to develop a set of equality outcomes and to produce a report on mainstream. Progress on the previous equality outcomes will be recorded via the annual performance report, which will also comply with the board's duty to report on progress. The next steps are an important part now, and it's up to us now to consider how we are going to continue to involve the community groups and service users which engage with us during both phases of the public consultation. We had really good levels of participation, and I think those community groups have expressed some sort of keenness to keep involved with the work. We're also going to work closely with our staff to ensure that the actions are implemented, and we have ran an online staff consultation. We're going to have our maiden meeting of the Equality and Human Rights Management Group next month, and I'm sure some of the actions and work around the equality outcomes will be on the agenda. And over the course of the lifespan of the equality outcomes, I would just like to point out that, although we've developed those outcomes, there will be opportunities to review those outcomes, to review the progress, but also to consider any other key points which may arise over the next 4 years, and I'll be sure to bring updates to the board at the appropriate stages. So really, there's nothing too much I want to say about this. I'm just going to return to the recommendations of the report, and I'm asking the board to approve the equality outcomes and mainstream report for 2024-2028, and following that approval will be published on the HSCP website. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments, any questions? Tricia?
Yeah, just really to welcome this report and also the engagement that we've had from members of our community and our team who have undertaken that consultation. I think it's come back with some really robust focus for us on delivering those outcomes, and obviously the report shows how that's moving through our existing plans, and further information will come back to the board in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was really just on the point about quality outcome 1. A couple of things, older people, but that's quite a wide definition. In somebody over, it could be over, somebody over 70. So could we have a clearer definition? But our main point really, our question is that because the problem some older people have is not being familiar with the internet or having access to it, how can we 100% guarantee the community other methods to the people involved? Because the very best method is not available to them. Does that make sense? Sorry, whoever's going to answer that.
That's okay. Thank you very much for that comment, Councillor Flynn. And yeah, I totally agree that older people as a term can be a pretty broad term, because people over a certain age bracket might not necessarily or describe themselves as an older person necessarily, and there's probably different definitions of when that starts. But I think generally people over the age of 65 were a large part of the cohort of people that came back to us, and they said that they were experiencing difficulties in accessing online services. Now, to answer the second part of your question about how do we actually make sure that we're going to promote our services through traditional means, well, that's a conversation that we're going to be having across all our services. We'll have that meeting with the Equality and Human Rights Management Group that's going to be organised for April, and we're going to draw on from people across the partnership from a range of services, and then we'll be able to have a discussion with them about how that's implemented in each different service, because the issues that how we traditionally communicate with people. But there's probably going to be a lot of rigid action planning around that to make sure that we're actually going to deliver on that. So I'll be more than happy to provide updates on the work that we're going to take forward.
But just really my main concern is that it's a very successful, planting crop, but we miss a cohort of people, we miss them because we don't know who they are. Because if they don't communicate, and maybe we don't get a message through them, you know. As a council, I'm sure other councils and other people, we occasionally get people like contacted and say that I've tried to, I won't get a name, but there's a lady that I know lost her husband. And she said, well, what do you do? You know, regarding, it's not a big IGB, regarding council tax. Down there, I'm worried about it because I don't want anybody knocking the door. And the legal process that she's going through will take 12 months. And she says, don't know the internet, I'm not interested in it, you know. So it's that kind of person that I just like not to miss out. And that's what creates extra stress, and extra stress then comes back to IGP as medical issues, etc. You know, but I'm sure the plan will work very well. But it's just to ensure that, you know, that we capture is almost 99% of the yellow older person. Yeah. I'll write into you about my problems as well.
Suzanne wanted to, could I just maybe add to sort of information that is provided? So we've been doing a lot of work through our tech development officer post, and so that we want to develop with tech providers and how really sense, etc. about that tech awareness, digital awareness, and linking to the fact that groups and organisations really learn some of these skills if they wish to do that. And we've also done those such as funding that we want digital access with technology itself. So we want to build on that. We previously seen this partnership around our partnership funding also has developed tech fund intended to use that and accessible challenges with individuals and with applications. And communicating with our business pointed out our comms officer and accessible information as well. And the main forward actually student time engagement strategy as well as communication strategy. And then we've been very much in their time and we went through this development draft document and approach to and recognising that outreach and what people or that we have to take about just to engage with individuals. And Dave touched on that. I think big thanks for underestimating the work that's been done around the consultation engagement and communities that we need to build on to build significant on important that's one thing that I would do that later. But I don't know if I issue, and it's one that we totally recognise and need to be to that, and that's why it's the board's outcomes. And that we've got both the numerous supporting mechanisms that will help take that to action. But so we're actually sure that we're right to do it. I just one thing I want to say just in terms of people being able to hear online, if we can all project a bit so that folk can hear. Okay, I completely forgot to say somebody mentioned that I'm in the break, so sorry. Anne.
Thank you, Camilla. I mean, I think we need to be careful about not categorising older people as all being technophobes. There are a lot of older people who do embrace new technology and are happy to learn. And what you're talking about, Suzanne, is really important in terms of facilitating, enabling and supporting that. But I mean, the action that's in the paper is to communicate and promote traditional methods of accessing services for older people. And for a lot of older people, it is more traditional methods that they will prefer. And we really have to, it's terms costs. We need to tailor the approach to what is an individual's interest. The difficult bit, I think, is that for a lot of older people, what they actually like best is face to face, and that's very, very staff intensive, can be very expensive. But we need to try and do it really feels needed.
It's just going to say, like, to and from this through our budget and through all the work we do with our communities, we have that communication pathway to try and reach out to all of these people who may find it difficult to engage, in particular with older people who are going to be exploring and all of our other points and networks. So I suppose it's a statement to everyone that if you have information that you wish to go out to local communities and people, particular demographic statistics, then please get more than happy to have a conversation with them. Because that would be needs for communication and use.
Any other comments or questions? Oh, well, thank you very much. I'll be happy to approve the equality outcomes and mainstreaming.
Again,
Thank you very much. And then next report, which was item 12, the carer strategy 23-26 update and short break services statement. And that's Margaret, what was on that?
Morning everyone, and thanks very much for inviting us to give you an update. I know you've got a busy schedule, so I will go through this as quickly as I possibly can. So the carer strategy, as you know, was approved in March 2023 and runs from April 23 to April 26. Within the strategy, we identified 6 commitments to carers that are outlined in the report, including identifying unpaid carers, especially those hard to reach, supporting, informing and empowering unpaid carers, enabling them to have a life outside of caring, to fully engage them in the planning and shaping of services, to raise awareness within communities of unpaid care and the demands and pressures on carers, and to recognise and value unpaid carers as individuals in their own circumstances and as equal partners in care, which is really important. We also have identified some actions for young carers and for parent carers that are included in the attached delivery plan, this was as a result of the discussions that we had during the consultation over quite a long period of time, and not just the formal consultation, and so we've incorporated that in. The delivery plan itself has 5 work streams. These include a commissioning work stream, which is about commissioning support for unpaid carers, particularly within communities, a hospital support and discharge work stream to enable us to improve the support for carers in terms of hospital discharge planning, which is section 28 of the 2016 Act. We've got a finance work stream. We've got a work stream that is focusing very closely on young carers, and we have the Carers Challenge Fund, which enables us to distribute funds to local organisations who can support us to deliver the strategy. It is all detailed in the delivery plan, so I'm not going to try and go through all of that. Hopefully you've been able to have a look at that, and I'm obviously quite happy at the end of this report to take any questions on that. In terms of the short breaks policy itself, this was updated in September 2023 following approval by the senior leadership team, and this was really to simplify the process for carers who were accessing alternative types of short break and support, and particularly for carers where an alternative to residential was requested and they go away with the cared for person, or the cared for person goes away with somebody else to enable a break for the carer. We have really simplified the paperwork around that. We've simplified the funding, we've decreased the bureaucracy, and that has made things easier for both our carers in terms of understanding what budget is available to them and how they can use it. But it also reduces the amount of work that staff, including our charging team, are having to put into these breaks for very, very little return in terms of any charges that we collected as a result of that. In terms of other updates within the report, we continue to track the progress of the National Care Service. in terms of the right to a break that's contained within the bill, and we liaise quite closely with national organisations, including Shared Care Scotland, who do a lot of policy work around this, and we contribute to that policy work in terms of the gathering of evidence in relation to the bill and subsequent parts of that going through Parliament. In terms of our block funded respite, we continue to block fund in residential care homes, and that is to try and make sure that we can maintain a level of choice and consistency, particularly locally, so that people can plan their respite ahead, and that we're not booking things on an ad hoc basis. But what we are also doing is trying to balance that with a level of flexibility to make sure there's funding available for people to choose different options out with our block funded respite, including out of area options, because you know that is sometimes what people prefer. And partnership working with the Carer Centre, one of the things that we've done is we are aware that when carers get their adult care support plan or young carer statement done, they often need an assessment of the cared for person in order to access the type of respite that is required, and that requires a separate assessment for the cared for person and an outcomes focused assessment being completed, and that can take time. So we are fast tracking flexible respite, which is a small budget that can be provided directly to carers to support them with their caring role in lots of different ways. It depends on the carer and depends what would make a difference to them, but we can fast track that part of it while we're waiting for the assessment for the cared for person to be done, and that enables us to take a preventative approach to try and support carers in that interim period, and that is welcomed by carers. We had received approval to recruit a social care officer, and we've now done this. So this social care officer is starting on the 15th of April. That will enable us to fast track those assessments where the cared for person also needs an assessment. It will enable us to pick up the adult care support plans much more quickly when they come into us, as they also go into the duty teams, to try and make sure that we can set up respite as quickly as possible and make sure that by supporting carers that needs don't escalate while they're waiting for support. We are working closely with our locality teams around this and the team managers to make sure that there's consistency in terms of identifying people within our case management system and making sure that teams are kept very well up to date with any assessments, changes, etc. that are happening for people that are covered by their team. And we've had really good conversations with the team managers around that and how this is all going to work. And the last thing is that we have to publish a short break services statement. We had to do that with the inception of the Act in 2018, and we have to review that annually, which we do, and if necessary to update that. So because of the changes that happened within our short breaks policy approved by SLT in July 2023, we have updated that, and we've attached a copy of that for you. And the other thing, we took the opportunity while we were updating that to put some information in there on the feedback we got from our short breaks survey. That's on page 15 of the report, and that enables you to see what people's experience of short breaks is, in terms of how they experience that. So in relation to, sorry, I'm just switching documents here. In relation to what we're asking of you today, we're asking you to consider and if necessary comment on the ongoing implementation of the priorities within the carer strategy, and that's in relation to the delivery plan which we're asking you to approve. That was approved by SLT in February of this year, and also to note the updated short break services statement that we've provided to you. In terms of our conclusions, There is information in there about the resource implications, and you will have heard some information in the investment plan that was presented by Leslie MacArthur earlier on today. There's no significant changes in terms of legal implications. We also attached the quality and poverty impact assessment, and we will continue to review that and make sure that as we are implementing the strategy, that we're making sure that that is updated where it's required. And I think that completes my report.
Very much, and as you know, I'm always very interested in this report. So I do have a couple of comments, but I want to open it up first to the members. I'll start with Caroline, who's online.
Hi. I just wanted to say how much, as a carer, I appreciate the report. And also in terms of the short breaks, I do have to say my husband and I were really fortunate to get a short break grant last year, which was extremely gratefully appreciated. I just wanted to say so. And then in terms of like respite, I was hoping this might be quite a good place just to ask a couple of things. I have some really amazing feedback about Thornton Gardens, which I don't know whether that's a day centre or if it's used for respite. But Frank, who's my sub, has given really fantastically amazing feedback about Thornton Gardens, about how amazing they are, what they're doing now. I think now that it's back to the use that it was, I think it was used for something different during COVID. He said the staff are just absolutely fantastic, and he feels they're a jewel in the crown for Falkirk Council, and he wanted to pass on his thanks to the staff at Thornton Gardens, and even in terms of like reports and things that come back, that they are just so incredibly detailed, and he just wanted to raise this in terms of it being the best that he feels he's seen in terms of that type of support and the types of reports that come in. So that was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline.
I think that feedback is absolutely fantastic, and I think the whole idea was so supportive of opening Thornton Gardens, and I think without you can definitely see the progress that has been made and what a valuable resource it is. Caroline,
thanks very much for all your feedback. I just ask Gail to pass our appreciation and your appreciation onto the staff, onto the families.
Did you have your hand? I did. You did. I'll bring Anne in.
I did. Like you, I really appreciate this report. I think for many years, carers have not had the attention that they deserve, and the unpaid carers. And I think it's really important that we have this strategy. So thank you very much for this. The one thing I would like to hear a wee bit more about is the income maximisation and debt advice, because one of the issues for many carers is that they may not be able to work, or the person they're caring for is probably not working, and there's a very real need to ensure that the situation is sustainable, that they have adequate funding, and sometimes it's a whole household issue, or sometimes two households or more. So I wonder if you could say a little more about where within the strategy that fits. So I wasn't seeing. I think it should be a big theme.
So within the strategy for a few years now, we have funded a designated advisor at Citizens Advice in Falkirk, who is there to support carers with income maximisation, debt advice, anything. And that was to make sure that carers were not kind of left on that waiting list of, just the general public, not just the general public, but you know what I mean, but the general public of trying to access that kind of advice, because we realise that in terms of the pressures on carers and the people that they care for, that making sure their income is maximised, making sure they get access to the carers payment, for instance, that came in from the Scottish Government, etc., was really, really important to try and reduce the impact of poverty issues on carers, because we know that's a big factor. So there is a designated post, and we in the last couple of years we actually increased the hours within that post because of the demand associated with that. Sorry, David, did you want to say something?
Yeah, if I can. We had the original post, we've got a second post, both of which would be funded for 3 years in accordance with a joint working agreement, which we're working with Citizens Advice on just now. So that's a role that is hosted by the Carers Centre, but delivered through Citizens Advice, focusing on all of those themes of income maximisation, whether that's debt advice, whether that's around benefits, or whether that's referring back into the Carers Centre to ensure that the carers are getting access to the other support available to them.
Thank you very much. That's reassuring to know that activity is all going on, and it might just for the future be interesting to have some greater reference to it in the actual report. Make sure that it's being recognised. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just like case studies were really practical methods. We did it for lots of good stuff. Especially funding more.
I think the case studies, and I think we've seen that across all of a number of the reports across the partnership and IJB that really help illustrate what the difference is that is being made by the partnership. And so I think they're really helpful. Any other comments or questions? Can I just briefly say I think the report is really good, and I think very pleased to see the work around the hospital support and discharge work stream, because I think anybody who's been in that position where you're trying to deal with illness at hospital and then trying to figure out what you're going to do next, I think is that additional support. I think is really important. So well done on that, and also the action taken around that fast tracking of flexible work, flexible respite. I think is really important, because individuals can break down in that time frame between that medical assessment. So really important preventive support. So well done on that. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to check there's no more questions or comments. Are we happy to approve the delivery plan and short read statement? That's great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Margaret, and thank you, David, as well.
Thank you. Thanks.
There's too many bits of paper. Some of them are yellow and some of them aren't, so I'm trying to find them. So we're moving on to the palliative and end of life care strategic commissioning plan, and I'd like to bring in Nicola.
Thank you, I'll be quick. So this paper that you've got in front of you seeks approval for the development of a full balanced strategic commissioning plan for palliative and end of life care. And if approved, the plan will be submitted to those Falkirk and Captain Southern IJBs for consideration in September this year. So there has been agreement from both health and social care partnerships and the health board over a need for a strategic approach in this area. And this will allow us to confirm our current resources, to quantify our current and anticipated future needs, and to commission services as appropriate. It's worth noting that there has been previous work undertaken in this area, most recently in 2022, and that work will inform the strategic commissioning plan, which will be led by the IJBs. As detailed in section 4.4 of the paper, the development of the plan will include engagement with local communities, and that will include families with lived experiences of the services, as well as staff involved in delivering support. This approach will contribute to the gap analysis and will inform the future direction of travelling. The plan will also include an indicative resource and financial profile. And section 4.5 of the paper sets out a timeline which will allow for the strategic plan to be presented to both IJBs and September. Again, just worth highlighting that a similar paper relating to this plan will be presented at the Tax and IJB for approval next. So to conclude, I'm just looking for IJB to approve the development of a full-file strategic commissioning plan for palliative and end-of-life care, which will be submitted for consideration to both IJBs and but I'm happy to begin.
Thank you. I'll open up any questions. Yeah. No questions. I think excellent to at that Forth Valley approach, and I think, you know, because a lot of services are Forth Valley wide, including in different sectors, so I think that makes a lot of sense. So are we happy to approve the commission plan? We'll see that in September. Great. You okay with that? Great. Thank you very much for that. And now we're on to agenda item 14, the Falkirk Alcohol and Drug Partnership update, and that's that. Well, you're on mute. All the joys of technology. What we'll do then is we'll just switch these around and we'll take item 15, which is the annual report of the Chief Social Work Officer. And that's Gail McIntyre. I know it's online. I can see her. Gail.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, everyone. I'm Gail McIntyre, the new Senior Service Manager in Children's Services and Justice. And within that role, there's some deputising responsibilities in terms of Chief Social Work Officer role. So I'm here on behalf of Sarah Lacey this morning. So you have a really comprehensive report within your pack, so I'll just provide a very brief summary and happy to take any questions at the end of that. So the annual report of the Chief Social Work Officer covers the period from April 2022 until March 23, and following approval from Falkirk Council in December 23, it was submitted to the Scottish Government as part of the statutory responsibilities of the Chief Social Work Officer role. The role of the Chief Social Work Officer is to provide professional governance, leadership and accountability for the delivery of social work and social care services. Section 1 of the annual report outlines various ways the statutory responsibilities are exercised with reach across the Council, the IGB and the Community Planning Partnership. The Chief Social Work Officer has key responsibility for performance management and the identification and management of corporate risk as it relates to the delivery of social work services. Section 2 of the annual report outlines service quality and performance information. Challenges and improvements are outlined at Section 3 of the report. A summary of the challenges includes the high number of young people we have welcomed to Falkirk as part of the National Transfer Scheme, who all need to be accommodated as looked after children, and the shortfall we experience in the number of mental health officers. Improvements highlighted include the important work in justice with their partners and the effectiveness of co-located services, and the restructured developments in the Health and Social Care Partnership, resulting in the development of an access team which aims to improve the quality and consistency of responses to the public. Also, the introduction of the new information rights service to improve performance around responses and meeting subject access request timescales and support for people who have experienced abuse or neglect in the care system. Section 4 of the report summarises financial resources available to social work services, and Section 5 of the annual report outlines significant challenges around the recruitment and retention of social workers and occupational therapists, which has been a priority for us in the reporting period. And I note that Martin's already made reference to that. Importantly, the report outlines what we have done to address the problems and how we can proactively monitor the impact of this. The Chief Social Work Officer is required to ensure that all social services workers meet the requirements of the SSSC Code of Practice and how we ensure we are meeting our duties as contained within Section 6. The learning and development opportunities we provide our staff are extensive. The energy and investment in this area not only reinforces our commitment to our workforce, but also to those in our communities, dependent on receiving the services from skilled, knowledgeable practitioners. Section 6 of the report notes the consideration being given to how Falkirk's children's social work services are delivered and managed at a local level, and whether, in due course, these services should be integrated into the Health and Social Care Partnership. We have been keeping a keen eye on the developments of the National Care Service. Since the submission of the report, progress has begun with the integration board agenda, and an integration board has recently been established with 4 subgroups reporting into this. As per our local arrangements, we use the Chief Social Work Officer annual report to satisfy another requirement of the Chief Social Work Officer role, which is to publish an annual duty of candour report. This information can be found at Section 8 of the report, and during the reporting period, there were no duty of candour instances. In the foreword to the report, the Chief Social Work Officer highlights the impact of poverty, trauma, and the changing landscape of service delivery, which is disproportionately impacting on those who need and benefit most from our social work and social care services. The report highlights the continued high demand for support coming from our communities as we recover from the overwhelming impact of the pandemic. The social work services workforce is diverse, and this report tells some of the story about the work they do and tries to do justice to their commitment and dedication. So the recommendations to the Integrated Joint Board is to ask to note the contents of the Chief Social Work Officer's annual report and to acknowledge the commitment, skills and experience of the social work and social care staff in the continuing to deliver services in challenging circumstances. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, and also to formally welcome you to this meeting, and it's great to have you on board as in your role, and very much appreciate you being able to come here today and exercise. Thank you very much. I'm going to open up for any questions or comments. I'm going to bring in Caroline, who's online.
Hi, sorry, I did tell you the carers have been very vocal. I just have a question around about, carers have a strong view around about children and adult services being separate, and I apologise because I feel in the back of my mind that this has been talked about before, so if it has, apologies. They feel quite strongly that there isn't a need to have a distinction between children and adult services, and they feel a more linear approach to care would benefit the cared for person. So just wanted to feed that in from carers. Thanks.
If I can just come in with that, is that okay? Thanks, Caroline. And yes, that's something that we are looking at in terms of whether there's opportunities to have more integration between children's services and the Health and Social Care Partnership, so that we can absolutely have more seamless transitions between children moving into adult services if they have additional needs. So we're definitely looking at that. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm sure that was the case. Thank you.
And this question.
Thank you, Katrina. And I've obviously had an opportunity to see this before when it came to the Falkirk Council. But I wondered if you might like to say something here about the issue of recruitment and retention, because I'm aware that that is a challenge within all of our social care services.
Yep, happy to respond to that. Thank you. I think recruitment and retention is, as you've said, a major challenge for us in Falkirk, but it's also a national challenge, and that's for social workers, social care and OTs. We have established a cross-service recruitment and retention group, so we're actively looking at strategies to try and, as it says, recruit and retain our staff. Part of that, we did create a new structure, creating an advanced practitioner role, again, children's, adults and justice. So that allows for career progression for our social workers and OTs, and also has allowed us to recruit more experienced staff to the council. So that's starting to impact. I think it's had different levels of impact across different services. We're also looking at more creative ways in our recruitment strategy. So we have, for example, created video links. So Sarah, as Chief Social Work Officer, has done a video, and we've also had some practitioners from across the service doing videos, just about short videos around their experiences of working with the council. So we've attached them to our recruitment adverts in the hope that that helps attract people to Falkirk. Relatively recently, I can't remember the exact date, but we also held an open recruitment evening. Again, cross-service recruitment evening, which was really well attended by our own staff promoting Falkirk Council, and we had quite a good response in terms of people dropping in to find out more about Falkirk. So we are making progress. Staffing levels have improved in justice. They are certainly on an upward trend in children and families. Martin might be able to say more about adult services, but that's where we're at in terms of recruitment at the moment. Thank you.
I don't know if you want to say any more, Martin, than you mentioned before.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much to add. We would just start joint working. We've been doing the children's has seen to get that recruitment and new progression opportunities. And unfortunately for adult social work services, we haven't really seen much additional capacity coming in terms of really experienced roles. So we still have real challenges around health officer recruitment, and we had hoped that that advanced practitioner grade we are rectifying that, so we are looking at other options, particularly in relation to that study.
So we do the contents of the report and thank you very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Right, so we're going to go back to the Falkirk Apple and Dundee partnership, and I believe Phil is now online. I haven't had a few problems with the computer.
Hiya there, everybody. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's typical. Just as I was about to come on, the computer crashed and went into an endless cycle. I needed to reboot. So it's always an interesting Friday. So this is the report for the Alcohol and Drug Partnership. It's an update on two of the main pieces of work that the ADP is involved with. There are many others, and I'm happy to take questions on any of the work streams that the ADP is currently progressing. The report is asking for comments and consideration on the progress to deliver the MAT standards, and also to approve the terms of reference of the new ADP Executive Committee and approve the nominations for Chair and Vice Chair of the ADP Executive Committee, which started this year. So as you can see from the report, there's a wee bit of a background for those people who aren't familiar with ADP work, and then we can dive straight into the delivery of the medication assisted treatment standards. So this is an extended piece of work. It covers Forth Valley in its entirety. It's multidisciplinary in nature, and the ADP has a responsibility to oversee the work and to report back to government on the progress of the various MAT standards. There's 10 standards in all, and they range from delivering same-day prescribing through to choice and through to allowing people to stay into treatment for as long as they deem necessary, and also to make sure that people are afforded the opportunity to re-engage with treatment when it suits them. There's also some additional standards around trauma-informed care as well. So each ADP has to report to the MIST support team, which is part of public health, and we currently in Forth Valley, both Claxon, Stirling and Falkirk ADP are on a monthly reporting cycle to MIST. So we report every month on the progress of the MAT standards. The MAT standards are governed by the MAT standards steering group, which is chaired by the ADP chairs, and that is the meeting where all the updates from the various partners are delivered and brought together into the report, which is then signed by the chief officer and sent to government. We're making considerable progress on the MAT standards. It's a really difficult piece of work. It requires foundational change to the way that many services operate, not only within themselves, but also in partnership with others. It needs careful revision of the treatment pathway, as well as the residential rehab pathway. Each year, in April each year, the Public Health Scotland compile all the data given to them by each ADP over the previous year and produce a benchmarking report. And part of that report is to RAG rate each ADP according to the progress they're making to each standard. We've been working very closely with Public Health Scotland and the MIST team over the last few months to make sure that in areas where improvement is most needed, that is carried out and is reflected within that RAG rating. And with conversations and reflections, both with the government MAT support team and also the public health MAT support team, as well as local teams, we're expecting to achieve a green RAG status on the majority of the standards for April 2024. Now, that is based on a number of different aspects to the work. It combines a range of data from procedural data, looking at standard operating procedures and so on, looking at numerical data and also experiential data as well. And that is probably one of the key aspects of this work, is how the plans that are being made are being experienced by people accessing the system. There's no point in designing a shiny new car if nobody can actually drive it. So I think that's really where we're concentrating on over the last few months running up to April. And we've been running conversation cafes across Forth Valley with people in recovery and people who are accessing the treatment system to get feedback on each of the MAT standards and their ability to access care and treatment when required, and what barriers there may be in place to prevent them, and also how we can overcome those. So the first part of the report gives a brief overview on the work that is being done up to date on the MAT standards, and you'll see that there is an anticipated status, RAG status table there for April 24, which are mostly green apart from MAT 3, which is still amber. That's the first part of the report. The second part is the report on the Falkirk ADP executive. So this is a piece of work that's been in progress over the last year, and it's really an attempt to try and make sure that the ADP itself is fit for purpose and is able to carry out the decisions needed to be made by the ADP on behalf of the IJB. So what we've done is we've looked at the ADP, how it existed, and we've created a new ADP executive. The ADP executive has representation from across Falkirk Council, Health and Social Care Partnership, Police Scotland, Public Health, Finance, NHS Forth Valley and Third Sector. We've also now got representation from Scottish Ambulance Service and the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service as well. We are in process of developing a lived experience panel, which will then allow us to include the voice of lived experience onto that executive committee as well. The terms of reference are attached to the papers, and as part of this, I would hope that the terms of reference can be agreed or approved by the IJB. There is a new chair, so Martin has stepped down as chair of the ADP. It is now Sarah Lacey, or the nominated person is Sarah Lacey to be the new chair of the ADP, and Martin will retain a senior position and is nominated as the vice chair of the ADP. One of the primary pieces of work, apart from the MAT standards, which the ADP will be working on throughout 2024, is a new delivery plan. So we are going to do a full needs assessment for Falkirk. That will include specialist input from health improvement team, from public health, from the planning and performance team in the Health and Social Care Partnership, as well as the potential to commission external input from consultancy firms as well. And that will then provide us with the data needed to produce a 3-year strategy and associated delivery plan for the ADP, so that we can be held to account, so we're accountable and transparent, and we can report on progress towards delivering the delivery plan to the IJB as time moves on. There's also attached to that a need for increased capacity within the ADP support team. We've identified funding within the ADP allocation to recruit 2 development officer roles to enable the ADP to complete the various different elements of work over this coming year, and that has been approved, and we're hoping to get the adverts for those 2 roles out in the next few days and interview towards the end of April. I think that probably covers the report. I'm happy to take questions on any part of the report or any other aspect of ADP work, including drug-related deaths, which I know was the main point of interest at the recent community planning partnership. And I'll just end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I have to say thank you to Mark for his chairpersonship of the ADP, and also thank you to Sarah, who has been nominated, which we still to approve, but we'll say thank you anyway. And I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments?
First of all, I think we ought to be congratulating Phil and the staff in terms of the progress that's been made in improving the achievement of the MAT standards. I think that's quite remarkable, and it's just a pity that there's one MAT standard that's still going to be on amber. It would have been nice to have 100%, but then you go. Perfection is difficult to achieve. But no, I think it quite seriously it's a credit to yourself and the other staff that have been involved in it that achievement that has been achieved. And I think I would like it if you would kind of say a little more though about the drug-related deaths, because there are fairly recent statistics that have come out, and it might be useful if that could be highlighted for the IJB.
I'd be very happy to do that, Councillor Hannah, and thank you for your compliments there. It's important to note that the MAT standards is a continual work in progress. It's not something we can tick off and just say that it's done. It will require constant refinement and progression as the years move on, and associated change within the system as well to reflect that. The drug-related death figures that came out recently, and it was all over the media, and the 10% increase that is national. It's important to remember that these figures were suspected drug-related deaths. The official drug-related death figures are produced by National Records of Scotland, and the report usually comes out in July, August for the previous calendar year, and the ADP traditionally makes a statement on the official drug-related death figures rather than the suspected drug-related death figures, because they can and do fluctuate as much as 5 to 10%. So it's important to remember that these are suspected drug-related deaths when we're comparing them to previous years. In terms of that said, in terms of the drug-related deaths, we are seeing no particular trends. They remain what we've seen year in, year out. We know where these deaths are occurring. We know that they're occurring in areas of high deprivation. They are traditionally 30 to 40-year-old males. They are using heroin and benzodiazepine type drugs, be they prescribed or non-traditional, such as the street Valium type drugs. There is considerable alarm nationally around the new synthetic opioids, the nitazines, that you may have heard about on the news, which are profoundly more potent than heroin, up to 1,000 times in some cases more potent than heroin. We've not seen any deaths occurring from nitazine use in Forth Valley that I'm aware of as yet. However, we need to be sharp to this, because there are some deaths occurring in neighbouring local authorities. I know that Edinburgh, West Lothian, these type of areas are experiencing nitazines within their drug supply. One of the pieces of work that the ADP is currently looking at with our third sector partners is nitazine testing strips as part of a harm reduction measure. So people can take these testing strips and test their drug supply before they use it, and if it comes up positive for nitazines, then obviously they are better informed over whether they want to take that drug or not. And we are also working closely with Public Health Scotland's radar early warning system to make sure that we are fully informed of any new drug trends that are appearing within the local area. We're also discussing with Public Health Scotland the potential to develop a local version of the radar system supported by them as well, which will give us a lot more of a control over the information flow around that. So yes, the drug-related death figures are always alarming, and but the ADP, like I say, will normally release a statement on the official drug-related death figures that will come out later this year, because they show a better comparison to the previous years, and it gives us a better idea of whether the MAT standards and the other pieces of work that we're working on is having an impact on those as well. Does that answer your question, Councillor Hannah, or is there anything else?
Very thoroughly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In fact, you answered the question I hadn't yet asked as well. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? No, in that case, can we approve the terms and reference of the ADP Executive Committee? And can we approve the nominations for Chair and Vice Chair?
Agreed.
Very much. We're now on to item 16, which is the Performance Monitoring Report, which is Cal.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to give an overview of the content of the latest iteration of the Performance Monitoring Report. As is the first one of the year, section 4.2 on page 344 of the packs outlines a timetable of what we plan to report to each IGB meeting across the year. As well as including the dates and the reporting period, it also details additional reporting items that we would hope to bring, such as the annual performance indicators and the local government benchmarking framework as well, both of which would give us an opportunity to look outwards in our performance and allow us to compare to other areas nationally. Coming back to this iteration of the report, performance is reported up to December 23 and with a year-on-year comparison. The report has a focus on exception reporting, and I'm now going to briefly talk through some of the areas highlighted in the exception reports before opening up to any questions or comments. The report highlights there are continued pressures around emergency department 4-hour compliance and around delayed discharges. The report details the December 23 position, and of course the overall position remains under continued review with sections 3.1 and 3.2, which start at page 357 of the packs, providing some further detail as well as some of the actions ongoing to support these areas. The report details for both social work, adult services and NHS services the number of complaints received and the percentage responded to within timescales. And it highlights a decrease in the percentage of complaints responded to within timescales for NHS services within the partnership. The Clinical and Care Governance Committee continues to oversee complaints performance as well as monitoring the underlying themes. There are detailed exception reports for sickness absence across both social work, adult services and NHS services attached to the partnership. The year-on-year sickness absence percentage has decreased for both, and while that's clearly encouraging, the absence figures do remain in excess of the long-term targets that exist. Lastly, in terms of the exception reports, it details the latest position for the waiting times for psychological therapies. And in December 23, 74.6% of patients started treatment within 18 weeks of referral. And that's an increase from the previous month's position of 64.9%. However, it is a decrease from the year-on-year position, which was 77.2% in December 22. In terms of recommendations, the board is asked to consider and comment on the content of the report and to note that appropriate actions continue to be taken to address the issues identified. Thank you very much for listening to my update, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments you might have.
No comments and questions, but thank you very much for the report. I have to say the exceptions report really helps, and it helps be able to, but for the lay people of us, to be able to really identify where the issues are and being able to keep an eye on them. So thank you very much for as well. Moving on to item 17, which is the IGIB governance report. And Suzanne, thank you very much, Chair. The report provides an update on matters for both consideration and decision. The first matter for decision is the appointment of members whose term of office ends in March 2024. The board is asked to reappoint Mark Wentz as a service user representative, Robert Clark as the NHS staff representative. The second update is on the review of the integration scheme. The board formal that an external consultant has been appointed on behalf of partners and is getting significant experience to establish a project team. Regular meetings have taken place and good events being made. The vision of the integration scheme is intended to improve governance in relation to the functions of each IGIB as well as the three councils and mentions with family. This will ensure that IGIBs will take forward their responsibilities. With the schemes, the partnership is required to ensure that support services including, for example, HR, finance, governance and professional is provided. That's to ensure the integration of delivered. Discussions are on part as well. We're working to September, October timescale for the 5 schemes to be presented to all partners, boards and committees, then to be submitted to the Scottish Government. We intend to bring forward a report in June of 2021. The final part of this paper is about the local IGIB self-evaluation, and that was using the ministerial strategic framework. The board will recall what started last autumn, strategic planning book to review progress against our specialist. The purpose of the review then was to help ensure that we have this place and delivering transformation. The development session held in the autumn provided an opportunity to review our progress since then and to discuss any improvement. And we did recognise at that point that to conclude this, we needed to do further engagement work and workshops to that extent. This work is ongoing and taking into account emerging financial and workforce issues, emerging and managing business and financial plan. Also recognise that there's an opportunity to extend this work to include both self-evaluation, also chief officer and chief finance. This also considers the transfer of health services and governance features. An update will be tried to future. So in conclusion, the board is asked to approve the recommendation of 2.1 for the and to remove the
Thank you, and also just to give the update and the review of the integration scheme and that additional support. So I'm just going to help see if there's any questions. I suppose my one question is just to check when we're looking at approving the reappointments, Margot, Robert and Victoria happy to be reappointed. Yes, double check that before we vote on it, because then they'll be stuck. In that case, I'd be happy to approve that reappointment. And also note the ongoing work to improve the integration scheme. I'll move us on to item 18, which is the communications update.
Oh, very much. Very pleased to be here to present the quarterly communications update, which provides a summary of activity across our services and demonstrates how we are implementing the partnerships communication strategy. So to begin, the report provides a summary of media coverage between October and December, which included 12 pieces of media and achieving 97,000 opportunities to see, mostly in Falkirk and Daily Record. On social media, we received a reach of over 64,000 and 250 shares. The report provides an update on communication pieces which support services and development across the partnership. And the key pieces of activity that I just want to highlight are the coverage received for the positive inspection results, Cunningham and Burnley care homes, and both of those receiving coverage in the Public Herald inspection reports, amending the homeless settings and flashing report by the government. And elsewhere, at Duncan Gardens, we covered this earlier in the agenda, and Duncan Gardens received positive coverage. Last summer, they raised over £1,000 through a community open day, and in October, they used that funding to fund a new gaming setup and room with TV games console, game shows, and pool table and decoration. So that was received permission for just Christmas dinner and just display the transformation of that service. Quite a brilliant and exciting place that was on the stage. Quite a transformation from the building's use as essentially previously. And so alongside that positive coverage, we've also been working with the service to produce a new leaflet and web page content. So if you go onto the partnerships website, there's a new service page with short breaks, and it features all those. In the world of recruitment, and probably it's quite early as well, the partnership had 2 recruitment events at the end of last year, one for social work and one for social care. And so the event, Gail covered that a bit earlier, the event promoting social work and highlighting the structure and roles and the career opportunities, experienced colleagues, and our home care recruitment event worked with partners and third sector employers from both social care. That follows the same sort of events we've been running 6 months or so in the past 2 years. And while we don't have any plans to rerun that immediately, we are anticipating an opportunity to promote the enablement focus roles. These are very listening through that project. At the end of the document, there's a complete list of the articles and headlines for like links, like €2. And the report also provides a short summary of upcoming activity. So, mostly from our communication strategy, alongside the distribution communication strategy, we've been running some sessions with planning group, team leaders, and the planning group team, and just to get some feedback on that, and I'm going to bring that strategy to the 17th June. In May, we are doing some work, what we're calling in self-directed support month of action, just to promote the different range of options within SDS. That's to promote that in staff, to help people to understand the options we have, but also that to carers and systems to get lots of channel during that support with the options. Again, in April and May, we're looking forward to refreshing the Living Well platform. So it'll have a new look and functionality. So again, it's an opportunity to get something more online and function with staff and different systems. So we start to reset systems. So lastly, I'll return to the recommendations of the update, which are to consider and comment on the company.
Very much. I think the article about the gaming and I think very much about Caroline was saying about what excellent support and being able to add some things like that in as well, just fantastic. So thank you very much. Do we have any comments or questions? What, Anne?
Yes, it's a very good report and nicely presented in terms of making it very easy to see what the achievements have been. So well done. Thank you for that. I think we should also perhaps be saying a very big congratulations to the teams that have achieved awards. I think it's really great to see that. And thank you for the report. And also, as I say, it's great to see that our facilities that are developing before up to the ways of entertaining.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much for the report, Paul, and we'll look forward to the next one. So we're on our final item, which is the approved minutes for meetings. As normal, I won't necessarily go through them, but what I will do is if anyone has any particular questions or comments they'd like to make, but this is an opportunity to do that around obviously around the audit committee, clinical and care governance, and also the joint staff forum. And I'll double check that everyone was anything wants to say on any of these. Does anyone else have anything that they want to add? So obviously these are all approved minutes, so we'll go back to the committee. So that kind of ends the formal part. So I'm just going to let the live stream be switched off, and if we could just stay online for a couple of minutes, please.